it's Dr. K, and this is the truth about mental illness. Welcome back, everyone. We are still on the greatest mental health and wellness journey of our lifetime. I'm excited you keep following me, and I'm excited that I get to be the one to bring it to you. So, as always, shout out to our caregivers, shout out to our ally angels. Man, y'all are sticking with me in this, and I am just loving it. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Today, we are going to do some myth busting. I have one particular myth that I want to address, and here's the reason why. I feel like I could do myth busting probably for the rest of my life because that's how much stigma is out there regarding mental illness. So that's one major thing. But another reason why I want to do some myth busting is because as we get beyond, the fall of this year in the exclusive private, launch for Hey, it's Dr. K, the truth about mental illness, the content is going to go just a little bit deeper. And so I really want to use this time in this social media campaign to continue to lay a really great core or foundation as it relates to the truth about mental illness. The other reason is because I firmly believe there are people walking around that have a mental illness that genuinely could use additional, help and support, but going based off of all these really stigmatizing myths that are out there, what's the likelihood that we're all going to get the help that we need unless we know what it is to advocate for it for ourselves? And so let's bust a myth. Today's myth is this: the person who has a mental illness caused their mental illness. Essentially, mental illness is your fault, Dr. K. You caused your own mental illness. That's exactly what happened here. Even saying that doesn't even feel right. Like, nobody should be looking in the mirror with a mental illness, diagnosed or undiagnosed, thinking to themselves, I have caused this brain disorder single-handedly on my own. That's how I chose to do life. That is absolutely incorrect. Please do not feel that way. If you have ever believed that myth, that is fine. I can tell you now that it is not true. You are now free to move about your world and get the help that you need so that you can have a better, more optimal life on this side of heaven. So let's talk through some causes. Before I talk through causes, let me just say this one other thing. And I've seen this, I have it down here to make sure we bust this myth regarding, causing your own mental illness, which you did not and cannot. You also cannot just will your way out of this. Like, I'm just going to wake up today and say, you know what? I do not have mental illness anymore, and all my brain chemistry is exactly the way it should have been, for the beginning of time, and everything is fine. It's still there. It's still happening. It's still happening to you, right? Because you didn't do anything to cause it, but it's happening to you. I didn't do anything to cause these brain disorders. It's happening to me, okay? That's a little trauma-informed care lens right there. So maybe Google that and you can understand what I just said a little bit more intentionally. So here are some actual potential causes for someone to have been diagnosed with a mental illness, since we just established that it is not any one person's fault. Number one, adverse childhood experiences. You can Google this tool, ACEs, similar to the patient health questionnaire that I went over and the generalized anxiety disorder survey that I went over. I'll go over this one, not today, but in another session, so that you can understand that adverse childhood experiences can absolutely have a significant impact on your overall development, health, and well-being, which could potentially lead to the diagnosis of a mental illness. That's one. Another one is if there's a family history of mental illness. We just say things like, oh, well, this runs in the family. I'm going to also add to that parental discord. So growing up in a home where, you have that significant relationship with your guardian or your parent, if you will, and there's a lot of strife and discord, that could potentially contribute to an adult's diagnosis of mental illness. Biological factors, things that are chemical regarding your brain chemistry. There could be some imbalances there. That would be what psychotropic medication could help to balance out. And then life experiences in general, which I'll say them real quick, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail regarding systemic things that could create or have a potential impact on your mental illness. So life experiences in general. So stressful situations in life can potentially cause, irritability. It can cause us to kind of lash out at other people with our language or aggression physically towards other people. It can mess up our sleep. So we're sleeping too much, or we're not sleeping enough, usually not sleeping enough in terms of stress. And then overall fatigue and exhaustion, just always feeling like you're just so lethargic and tired all the time. Multiply that times multiple years, and you've got what's considered long-term stress. And those are things that obviously can contribute to a diagnosis of depression, anxiety related to mental illness, even at a baseline level, if not diagnostic, just flat out burnout in life. Financial problems could be another one. Also, the death of a loved one, and I'm just going to say loss in general. Death of a loved one, death of a pet, loss of a pet, loss of a relationship. It could be a significant other related to divorce, or a partner. It could also be loss of a job. I mean, just any type of loss in general is something that we would deeply consider as it may relate to a mental illness in terms of being diagnosed. Let me see here. Having few friends, feeling lonely and isolated. This is deep. I really probably need to come back and talk about this. I am the type of person where I am fine being by myself. I don't need, to be around people all the time, but I understand that not everybody feels like that. There are times where I do feel like, oh my gosh, I do wish I had something to do or someone to hang out with, or, something like that. This is different. This loneliness and isolation is something that could be a contributing factor to a diagnosis of a mental illness. Maybe you feel like no one cares about you. No one is checking on you. No one is calling you. No one is texting you. That's why I put up the post maybe like 2 weeks ago that just said, check on your friends. Like, just check on people. Like, you have no idea what one phone call, one text message to someone out of the blue could do to their overall mental health. Like, you could be reaching out right at the right time. That person may be feeling really low or isolated, and maybe you reaching out and inviting them into your world and into your space. Maybe it's just a cookout. Maybe it's, just everybody meeting up, over here for dinner, and you wanted to bring them along. So loneliness and isolation is a very big deal when it comes to a cause toward a diagnosis of mental illness. And then struggling with spiritual beliefs is as well. I mean, there's so many different religions and faith walks and spiritual, things that people ascribe to. I ascribe to God. I told y'all a long time ago, I love Jesus. So that's where I connect. But other people may connect in another way to something else outside of what I know and believe. And that is fine. What do you need to do to improve your overall mental health? Is it being connected in nature? When I think nature, I do not think like camping. Okay. If anybody knows me, they know I don't do that. I'm not even trying to glamp instead of camp. However, you can leave me alone on a beach all day in a huge body of water, and I promise I will not move from that spot. That's my connection. That's how I connect, you know what I mean, spiritually, in my relationship with God too, is just being alone and being, in those spaces. So some other things that are, these are pretty much systemic for the most part, but I'm going to pop through these because they do have an impact on our mental health and well-being, and could be a cause or reason why someone could be diagnosed as an adult, at least, with a mental illness. So experiencing discrimination, specifically racial discrimination. I mean, this is something that I have to think through every single day. When I leave my home, I identify as being Black and a woman, and externally, those are probably the first two things that somebody might recognize about me. But beyond that, I have to think about my entire day in a way that some other folks may not have to do. I mean, I have to think about where I'm going to go, who I'm going to be around. Then I know, how I'm going to position myself mentally. I know how I'm going to dress. I know how I'm going to speak. I mean, there's just so much weight in that space of discrimination. That's just the racial discrimination part, right? Let's think about stigma and people being stigmatized, and how much discrimination can be a contributing factor to overall mental illness because of the world that we live in. So this is another reason why we're busting these myths. Social disadvantages like poverty or debt, having a long-term physical condition. This one I want to go deeper into, to say that there are folks with physical conditions that you can't even see by looking at them. So we cannot judge and assume that every person is as they appear, right? People who have physical conditions that they have to think through all day, every day, in terms of their environment and how they're going to navigate just to be able to conquer that day. That is every single day. And when I think about that for myself with mental illness, I'm like, yep, because this is what mental illness looks like too. Mental illness looks like this too. Okay. I leave my house looking like this probably almost every day, but mental illness looks like this too. It doesn't look like, these TV shows that we watch that, have those very stereotypical aspects of what mental illness looks like. Mental illness looks like this too. Unemployment or losing your job, homelessness or poor housing, long-term caregiver for someone. My caregivers, let me just call you out right now. I shout you out every single segment, so let me just call you out in this space. If you have not watched my self-care segment, press pause right now and go back and watch it, then come back to this. Because you have to take good care of yourself just as much as you are positioned to take care of somebody else. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. You cannot. Drug and alcohol misuse. We have talked about that regarding coping versus unhealthy coping. These are things that could be a cause or contribute to a potential diagnosis of mental illness. Domestic violence. Absolutely. Absolutely, domestic violence. Absolutely, domestic violence can have a significant impact on your overall mental health and well-being, and can absolutely contribute to a mental illness diagnosis. Again, we are going to go deeper into things after the fall. And then significant trauma as an adult. So normally we used to think about military service, specifically, combat, but there could be other things like witnessing a very traumatic event, or being engaged in an accident or something like that was also equally traumatic, and now you fear for your life because in that moment you had to. Maybe you were witnessing an active shooting that was happening and you feared for your life, and now you cannot go into or around the space where you witnessed that. Or if it was a car accident, it's difficult for you to get in the vehicle now, So these are some things that can contribute to the cause of a mental illness. And then being the victim of a violent crime in any way. So these are just some overarching, levels of awareness that, you did not cause your mental illness. I did not cause my mental illness. There are other factors, as you could see, I just listed a ton of them that could contribute to the potential diagnosis of a mental illness. But I'm going to give you all something that's hopeful, because it's something that I had to learn about myself in the course of treatment, which is the environments that I allow myself to be connected to. I have gotten so much better at just being more aware about what my triggers are in certain environments, so that as much as possible, I can either prepare for that environment or just stay away from it completely. It's these three things, not in any particular order, but one, environments that are chaotic. I can't not do it. I can't do it. Too many of my symptoms immediately rise to the top, and that's letting me know, red flag, get up out of here, girl. This is not an environment for you. Environments that lack proper communication. I really feel like at the end of the day, proper communication and kindness can heal the world. Like, let's go. Let's do this. If we can not be afraid to just talk about the tough things in life in order to help ourselves or other people be able to move forward in a healthy way, oh my gosh, we can heal the world. Proper communication and kindness can heal the world. So I know that I don't thrive in environments or even in relationships with people that don't provide just regular old proper communication. That's not something that I can tolerate. And then last but not least, I do not thrive in environments that are unsettled or that perpetuate instability. I can't do it. As for this, I just got to be out, because I like, as you all can see, I like things to be anchored. I like there to be just, a genuine level of just awareness at the very least. And then we can start adding layers like, communication and kindness and things like that into the space. So I'm going to end by paraphrasing Proverbs 4:7, because I feel like it's necessary when we are talking about myth busting and getting through to the truth about mental illness. And that is that it may cost all that you have, all resources. This is the abridged version. All resources that you may have access to, but no matter what in life, get understanding, get wisdom, So these truths that I have just shared with you today is me helping you to get the wisdom that you need to truly understand the truth about mental illness. We are not done. We have literally just begun. I'm going to be on fire with all kinds of content that's going to help us understand the truth and just bust all these myths. So until I see you again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited that we just keep on this road together. And as always, unto the nations.